Thank you so much, Deb. One last little bit of information we want to share with you. This is a little bit more, I'm going to say, informal. We had hoped to have somebody here from some department in the provincial government to talk to us about employment standards on the farm. People you hire, how you pay them, what you have to do. 3 weeks notice wasn't enough for them to prepare to do a 20-minute presentation. So you're going to receive a little handout sheet before you go, and it's just a couple of soft and fluffy stories about horses and being a stable owner. And on the back at the bottom is website information on where you can go to get information as far as the Alberta employment standards for farms go. So I encourage you to check that out. We're going to kind of finish some things off with a very interesting little dialogue and presentation and questions from Hedi. So Hedi Klassen.
Thanks everybody, I'm in the dreaded last spot. So I'll try and make it brief. This is a little bit different because I'm probably going to give you more questions than answers. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Hedi Klassen. We own a small 18-stall boarding facility on the Y Road. When you were talking about old times, my husband used to train driving horses on the Y Road, if you can believe it. Now we don't even like to stand at the end of our driveway. In 4 days, we will have been there for 40 years. Isn't that not something? Hard to believe. So my husband was a trainer for many years, then went to work for the county fire department, and now is back giving, ever since he retired for the last 10, 12 years, he's been giving lessons again. He's 75 years old and teaches about 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, so it's kind of a lifelong commitment. Our daughter Kathy, she's the barn manager now, and I'm the office manager. My background is, I wrote as a kid, I studied livestock production at Washington State University. I see Pam Zimmerman left because I was going to embarrass her, because she and I are both from Washington State University, and we're both WSU NIRA Rodeo Association Queens from like many years ago. How's that for a piece of trivia? I worked in a large animal hospital practice for a few years. I was married to a large animal vet. And then I became an accountant, and I worked 27 years as Director of Financial Services for one of our local school boards here in Sherwood Park. So I have a kind of an interesting background. I have a strong science background, and I've also got a strong business background. I still ride amateur, always will, and enjoy it. I have 3 horses right now, if you can believe it. One is old, and I'm supposed to retire him, but I cannot seem to do that. What my goal kind of is for this talk is just to get the ball rolling. We had kind of pictured if we had a whole day, we wouldn't mind having breakout tables where we talk about topics. I've been to lots of conferences in the world of school board, accounting and finance, where that's what we do. So like somebody might be at one table talking about insurance, somebody might be at another table talking about feeding or manure management and so on, and then you talk for 10 minutes and you switch. So this is kind of a start of what we are thinking we could share information amongst ourselves. And goodness knows that's one of the most important things I think of this whole organization. I've been a director from the onset of this, and let me tell you, it kind of came right after COVID. And wouldn't it have been great to have this organization and a voice during COVID? Because I know I was getting calls from all sorts of people, you know, a cowboy who has a stable out by Toefield. He'd be like, Hedi, I don't know what to do. And, you know, I kept trying to disseminate the information. I was able to actually get an equine exemption to keep our clinics rolling. And it would have been nice to share that with people. I mean, because of my background, it was easy to do. I won't say I'm not using easy because it took me 14 hours to do the form and send everything in. But we were able to keep going, but still had to follow by their really dumb rules. Like we were outside giving a clinic in the pouring rain, in the mud, because we couldn't have an instructor teaching inside at that point in time. We had to teach outside. Yeah, it was horrible, wasn't it? It made no sense. I just thought this is not logical. But anyway, on to what I'm supposed to be talking about, actually. I'm not an expert on anything that I'm going to talk about. Matter of fact, polar opposite. This is an area all related to insurance that drives me nuts because I don't know enough about it, and the whole thing keeps changing. And it even changed yesterday. Yesterday my eyes were twitching, and I'll get to you about that, why that was. Now we all know we need insurance, I'm sure. I would hate to think that anybody who has a horse, period, doesn't have some kind of insurance. We need to look at liability, fire, theft, what the deductibles are, and so on. And I won't even get into that. That's between you and your insurance agent. Every company's different, so on. My advice, though, is read your policy. That's what I was doing yesterday. Our policy comes into effect February 1st, and my eyes were twitching when I read my policy yesterday. One thing I am going to talk about is freelance coaches, because I think a lot of people aren't aware of the rules around that. And also, make sure that all your special events are covered. Because you know what, you have a social, it might not be covered. You have a horse show, depending on who you let come in. Like right now, our farm is covered for horse shows that are related to clinics and or only our own clients. I can't offer a horse show inviting all of you to come to my place on a Saturday. So if I'm not aware of that, that could really lead to some problems if there were some accidents. Freelance coaches, and that's something that kind of caught me, I guess not by surprise, but I learned something this year. So a freelance coach is somebody who doesn't just work for your facility. If somebody is an instructor and they work for your facility and that's it, that's fine. On your insurance form, you'll probably have to, the pre-questionnaire that you fill out before they do your insurance, you'll have to list them and how many years experience they have and so on and so forth, and that they're your employee and they only work at your place. But a freelance coach would be if I went to your stable and then I went to your stable and I went to your stable, or like in our case, we have lots of clinicians that come in. And so they're traveling all over the North America, some of them. And so they're considered freelance coaches. You need to have an insurance certificate from each one of those, and stating that you're also an additional insured under their policy. So they just call up their insurance company, say, I need to have Bob and Hedi Klassen, Courier Equine Park listed as a additional insured. And then they send it to you, and then in our case, and this is how our company, insurance company works, I send it to our agent, and usually within a day or two, she says, fine, go ahead, or she has questions about their qualifications and comes back and I have to work through that. As I was starting to work through the process for this year, I realized I never got one from somebody last year. And it was a case that they hadn't finished getting their new certificate, and I don't know, somehow it went through the cracks. And so I fessed up that I didn't have it last year, and she said, you do realize that it isn't just them that is then practicing there without insurance. You have no insurance for that event. It was a clinic, and I didn't get that clinician's insurance. So if somebody had gotten hurt at that clinic, I would have no insurance despite what I'm paying every year for liability insurance, because it's a requirement of my insurance that I have those there. And I guess I should have known it, but I didn't realize the full impact of it. And so I said to Gary Gunn, I wonder how many people have clinics and they don't even think about it. They just bring in a clinician and, you know, and maybe your insurance allows that, but mine doesn't. So that's just something to think about. The other area is I always advise all our clients, and I just did that this weekend for my yearly update, is that they have to have their own liability insurance. Your horse kicks somebody, I've got insurance, but you don't. So make sure, even if it's your only horse, that you you can usually get a rider on your house insurance to cover the horse. And also, some people think, well, I have farm insurance, it's okay. But a lot of people's farm insurance only gives them insurance when the horses are on their property. It doesn't give them insurance for when they come to my stable or they go to somebody else's, or to a horse show or whatever they're going to. So I think it's the best practice that we remind our clients that this is the case. The other thing, WCB, I mean, it isn't a requirement for farms to carry it, a lot of us do, But my WCB does not cover a client if they bring in their own farrier, their own massage therapist, that sort of thing. And so I remind them of that when they bring in a farrier, which is one of the most common ones, we have a house farrier, but we probably have, I don't know, 4 other farriers that people bring in to do their horses. I don't have anything to do with it. I won't hold the horses if they bring their own farrier. I don't book it, it's all their thing. But they also take on the liability, just like you would if you had somebody come in and work on your roof and your house. You need to check and make sure they have WCB or some sort of disability coverage, otherwise you are taking on that liability. So I remind them in that same letter about that same thing. Waivers and boarding contracts, I was lucky enough that Cam Krause, our lawyer that spoke earlier, he went over mine because he was starting boarding horses at his place, so he used mine as a template. He made some changes to it, so that's great. But I've been advised, I think probably about 8-9 years ago, the insurance company that I worked with came in and said, how often do you get one of their questions for my yearly insurance was, how often do you get your waivers signed? Well, when the client comes. And one of our clients had been there for 20 years and I still had the original waiver. So best practices, they get done every year. So 1st of January, I give them 30 days to get their new waiver in. I still, of course, have their waivers from last year. Should something happen anytime, I'm still going to pull those. But best practices, every year, get your waivers signed. EC Coach, we'll talk about EC Coaching. I'm not going to talk about the program, although my husband and I do believe in it. We believe that there has to be some certification of instructors. We've seen some instructors that we can't believe are instructing. And some people don't like the EC program. That's fine, but at least it's a start, it's a measure of assurance. My husband at age 73, and he certainly didn't need to go do it, got his and renews it every year. And just because we want to show young instructors that we feel it's important and we're going to do it. What is interesting though is everybody kept saying, well, it's not going to impact your insurance. And I did hear somebody else, I think it was you, maybe mention that it did. And I do believe it does. Our insurance hasn't been impacted by it, but I am required to list any instructor that comes to our place, whether they're EC certified or not. And as I've been collecting these insurance policies from the various clinicians that we have, I did notice on one who sent me her whole thing with her cover letter, and it did indicate that they are going to be giving a discount to anybody that has their certification. So I just thought that was interesting. I will go through what made me twitch yesterday. Got my policy on Thursday, didn't read it on Friday. Yesterday I thought, I should practice what I preach. I should read my policy. And it's the insurance company I've been with, we've been with them for more than 40, I was with them before the 40 years. But they've gone through, the original company sold, then the new company sold, and now they're with like the third company. And my agent did give me a little heads up because she said, Hedi, be sure to read this over the next week and send in the acceptance. And I've never had to do that before. I've never had to send in an acceptance. And I thought that was a little odd. Well, listen to what we're not now. Our policy is $11,000 a year, so I'm thinking I should be pretty covered. But no, we're not covered to breed any non-owned horses, including stallions. Now I have to admit, I would have never thought about that. We've been breeding horses for years. We don't have a stallion right now, but if somebody had brought in a stallion and wanted us to cover a mare, we would have. My husband, who was a horse show judge for many years for the Arabian Association, Equine Canada, or CEF as it was back there, is not covered to judge a horse show. So if he'd gone to a little local 4-H club and asked him to go judge a show, I would have never thought about it. And if there'd been an accident during the show, we wouldn't have any insurance for him being in charge of that ring. When you think about it, as a judge, you are in charge of that ring. Another one that made me twitch is we have 2 horse trailers. I knew my living quarter trailer wasn't, I couldn't haul anybody else in there, and I don't want to haul anybody else in there. But our other trailer, I've always had commercial hauling insurance on it, and never thought about it. But this policy clearly says I'm not covered to transport any border or student horses. I'm also not covered to own livestock other than equine. So, like somebody pointed out, if I got a chicken and it pecked somebody, I'd be in trouble. And my question is, what if I finally got that miniature donkey that I've been bugging my husband for, that he will never let me get? But what if I finally got it? It says horses. So,
Never getting a donkey.
so I guess I wouldn't be covered. I'm not covered for bed and breakfast, which led me to the question, we have an apartment in the barn, and sometimes people who come in for clinics rent it from us if there isn't a clinician that uses it. We're not covered for farm tours. Does that include people coming out to see the farm, to come and board at our place? I'm not covered for sale of equine-related products over $1,000, and I know lots of places sell hay and other products, and I'm guessing they probably don't think about talking to their insurance company about it. And then finally, my son, who worked for 2 years resolving insurance during the floods of Calgary and Fort Mac, said, what about exclusions as a contributing factor? And I'm like, huh? And what he said was, let's say, I know I don't have insurance to haul a horse, but we've got a horse that really has to go to Momentum, which is like 2 minutes down the road from us. I throw it in the trailer, a deer jumps out in front of my truck, I slam on the brakes, it's icy road, and I slam into somebody. Because I'm hauling a horse that isn't owned, that goes against that insurance policy, I wouldn't have liability or collision because of that. And I had no idea about that. And so he said that's something that I should have, be aware. I mean, you obviously can't do anything about it. On the bright side, I am covered to have a watercraft up to 26 feet. So anyway, those are just ideas, and I hope it will make you look at your policy and ask the questions of your insurance people, and think about things. Because like I said, all those things on there, I would have never thought about. I would have just gone ahead and done and gotten myself into hot water. And hopefully we can have more of these discussions, and if anybody has anything they want to share on the thing of insurance, please do. But we're hoping that we can carry on and have more of these kinds of discussions amongst stable owners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hedi. That's what you call the voice of experience. Well, thanks so much for coming. You've been very patient. This is a long time to keep you seated. I think if we were to do this again, we'd have a break halfway through so you could stretch your legs. We've distributed some surveys throughout the crowd. If you wouldn't mind just taking a minute, it's fairly simple. You can just draw circles around stuff. Unless you got important things to say, then you can write on the front, you can write on the back, and we could probably even find you with an extra sheet if you needed to say more. But we're really interested to know what you think about this kind of organization. We're interested to know your thoughts on what we should be doing in the future if there is a purpose for this organization. Obviously, if this organization does continue, we want to know if it's suitable for you to be a member. We even want to know how much you think it's worth paying to develop a membership fee, just to get your ideas on what we can do moving forward. Obviously, education is a huge component. And it's the education of learning all of those little innuendo things, like why your insurance policy includes an 18-foot watercraft. That's the fine print. Those are the things we've got to answer, and we've got to help you. So if there's no other questions, you can leave those for the surveys on the table. I'm going to put out one other little handout you can take with you. If you want to sit and chat, we'll leave this room and we can just kind of gather out in the foyer and chat there. Thank you again for coming.